Hello fish friends. Today let's make a long-lasting DIY CO2 that will last for 6 to 8 weeks without any intervention or maintenance. Some of the things you will need are a couple of soda bottles. The larger the better. 2 one-way valves. 1 baby brine shrimp hatchery cap. 1 DIY CO2 cap. A good quality air control valve. Some good quality hoses and finally a CO2 diffuser. Normally most people install the first one-way valve here, outside and in between the 2 bottle. However, I install mine inside the second bottle. As the setup starts to produce CO2, the pressure will rise. I've found that having the valve outside runs the risk that it will pop off the hose. Whereas if install inside the second bottle, pressure surrounding the valve is the same inside and outside it. This makes it a more reliable setup. I install a rigid tube so the CO2 flows from the first bottle into the water in the second bottle. This will later act as a wash. It is not frequently mentioned in most DIY CO2 videos, but another byproduct of this reaction between the sugar and yeast is alcohol. So it was as needed. Just in case, to prevent alcohol from getting into the aquarium. It will definitely kill your fish. This is an example of a system that has been running approximately 4 weeks plus already. The gelatin is clearly visibly slowly breaking down as the yeast consumes the sugar. Touching the bottles, it is extremely hard from the pressure built up inside. You can also see that the first bottle is still producing a lot of CO2 as bubbles are pushed into the second bottle. The purpose of have 2 big bottles will enable the buildup of lots of CO2. If only 1 bottle was used, then definitely it won't handle the pressure. Now let's make a gelatin sugar mixture. I prefer this brand of gelatin. It's a local brand here in the Philippines. It's very cheap, and it won't even need to reach boiling temp. And it will still turn to jelly. For every pack it is good for 2 setups. We will also need 250 grams of sugar. The sugar I use is unwashed brown sugar. You will need to prepare 500 milliliters of water in a small pot. Heat up the pot and add half of the 250 grams of sugar. No need to get it to boiling. Just make sure the sugar is all dissolved. Here you can see I did not even bother to weight the sugar. I just sort of eyeballed it. Stir the pot. Ensure that the sugar has dissolved before adding the gelatin. After the sugar has all dissolved, I turn the heat off and gradually add the gelatin. And mix it well until no clumps are present. You will need to experiment with the consistency of the particular gelatin you will be using. Remember, it needs to be soft and jiggly. If it's too hard, the yeast can't eat through the gelatin. You can easily adjust the consistency by adding more or adding less. It is more trial and error. Eventually you will get it. With the case of this brand of gelatin, I just eyeball approximately half of the pack per setup. While we wait for the mixture to slightly cool enough so that we can pour it into the bottle. Now would be a good time to add Teflon tape to the threads of the bottles. This will guarantee a long-lasting seal. If you'll notice, I am applying the Teflon tape this way. I am not purposely making it hard for myself to impress you. The tape has to be placed so that it will not unravel as you screw the caps on. Now this next part is purely my own way of checking the gelatin. Please use a spoon to do this part. And do not follow my bad example of using my fingers. You can see that the gelatin is starting to set. Now is the time to put it inside the bottle. Use a small basin that you can fill with water. As you pour the gelatin-sugar mixture, it can sometimes be hot enough that it can deform. Or even melt the soda bottle. The water on the basin cools the mixture. You can also add ice to the water. It will help set the gelatin a lot faster also. Now we take the rest of the sugar and dissolve it. Remember, you do not need to bring it to boiling. If the sugar has all melted, you can turn the heat off. I add water for the second bottle. This bottle is your wash bottle. Screw the cap on snug, but do not use excessive force. At this point, make sure the gelatin has set. Cool the second sugar mixture and add to the gelatin mixture that's already in the bottle. This next step is probably the most critical, as this will determine if your setup will last the long haul. Some other tutorials will mention that you will need to occasionally remove the water mixture and refresh with new yeast. This is wrong. What is happening with their mixture is they are adding way too much yeast. Remember, alcohol is a byproduct of the reaction. If there is a lot of yeast, sure, the reaction will start faster. But you will also be producing too much alcohol that you will kill the yeast. This will stop the reaction. Less of more in this situation. I only add a little. Basically the tip of the spoon. This is the mixture just a few minutes after I added the yeast and capped the bottle. Even with only a little yeast, the reaction is slowly starting. It should be ready to use with CO2 built up inside within 18 to 20 hours. You can also see as I squeeze the bottles it is still soft. The mixture was made approximately 4:30 p.m. yesterday and now it's 2 p.m. The mixture has surely reacted and the bottles are now rock hard. I will slowly open the air control valve. As you open the valve, you need to remember that CO2 has to flow and pressure has to build up also in the hose going to your diffuser. Do not panic if you don't see CO2 flowing instantaneously as you open the valve. Remember that the diffuser is offering some resistance and that a certain level of pressure has to be achieved in order for the CO2 to move past this resistance. Sometimes if there is water in the tube, you will see it creeping towards the diffuser like this. It's a sign the pressure is building up and that CO2 is on its way to the diffuser. Also, on another note, I've used citric acid and baking soda mixture also. But contrary to what you see in the tutorials, I could never get that to last more than a week. This system will run the full 6 weeks without even the need for solenoids. I just let it run 24/7. Now before you try this, you need to analyze your water. My water is extremely hard water. And my pH is 8.4 to 8.2. Have this system run actually softens the water and lowers my pH to a final 7 to 7.2, so it works out for me just fine.